Hey everyone, so I wanted to go over some moving averages for Bitcoin to help give us that clarity in this time of panic for when we might see that bottom and at what sort of prices we might be looking at. So if that sounds good to you and you want a plan of clarity and accuracy with factual data, then go ahead, subscribe to the channel down below, help me in the YouTube algorithm by liking the video, and without further ado, let's crack on. So the first thing that I wanted to draw your attention to was the 4-year cycle, which we have been following, and we do think that this is, a trend that we are likely to continue seeing, and until that breaks, that's what we're going to be following. And we know that in the last 2 or 3 halvings, that essentially when we actually got the halving about 76 to 50 days beforehand, somewhere in that range, we tended to see a bottom for Bitcoin. And you can see that the next halving is coming in at about March 2024. And if we extrapolate some of these days, then we're potentially looking at that low to come in and around Q4 of 2022, and that might come in at around October, November, most likely, according to 4-year cycle theory. If we take a look at the weekly moving averages, we can get some data to back that up that we've seen in previous bear market cycles. They're also going to give us a bit of a date range as to where we might bottom out. And if we take a look at the 50-week moving average and the 20-week moving average, which is the blue and green, every single time that they have crossed over, you can see that we've got that back in December 2018. We got that also back in January 2015, and we're getting that exactly at the moment. That same crossover has resulted in a bottom, and not only that, it has also resulted in a touch of that 200-week moving average, and you can see that is exactly where we are at the moment. So this may be a potential bottoming area for Bitcoin. I'm not saying that it is, but we can suggest that as we've reached our 24k target that we spoke about earlier in the year, that anywhere between here and lower is probably going to be a good time to be buying Bitcoin, and is definitely a potential bottoming area for Bitcoin. You can see the same thing happen in 2014. So interestingly enough, the last 2 times this happened, this did mark out the bear market cycle low. On the monthly time chart as well, we can see that every time we break below the 20-month moving average, as we have done 3 times now. The first time that we did that was in October 2014. We did it again in 2018 August, and we did it this year, May 2018. We dropped straight down to that 50-month moving average, which is typically where we see support, and we're currently residing in and around those levels, which is also coincidentally just above the all-time highs. So another reason why at the moment we might be seeing a potential low for Bitcoin. And when we get our cross of our 50-week moving average with our 20-week moving average, we also tend to see a bottom of that crossover that we mentioned about earlier in the video at sometime around that 180-day mark. So you can see that when we've got that last crossover the last 2 times, 180 days or 160 days or so typically marks a bottom. So where would that put us from here? 180 days would again put us at about September, October, in and around that time. So we're looking at that time frame between right now in June, July to about October for Bitcoin to start really flushing everyone out of the market and really capitulating towards a bottom. But I also want to draw your attention to 2 other key moving averages, which are going to give us a bit of a date range as to when we might see a bottom. So we've got our 4-year cycle coming in at about October, and we might be seeing a potential bottom now as we've had that weekly crossover and breakdown on the 20-month moving average. But if we have a look at the 21-week EMA, that is also quite interesting, because every single time that we have fallen below the 21-week moving average, we have seen a bottom every single time, at about 300 days after we broke below it, So if we extrapolate where we broke down from at the minute, we basically broke down from that 21-week moving average right over here in January 2022. And if we take 300 days from that, that would put us in and around that October bottom as well. So we're definitely getting a lot of confluence here with our moving averages to give us a little bit more clarity as to those date ranges and why we've been looking at 2022 towards the end of 2022 as a potential bottom for Bitcoin. And last but not least, if we take a look at the 50-week moving average crossing over the 100-week moving average, as we've seen in the past, okay, that we typically, okay, so let's speculate that we get that crossover sometime September, October, okay, we can speculate that we typically get that crossover sometime about 100 days or so, or 80 days or so, okay, before that crossover. So if we speculate 80 days before that crossover in October to September, then we can again have a look at some potential date ranges of about July or June. So all things point at the moment, okay, given all of the stuff that we've just talked about, that we might be seeing either a bottom now, or we're potentially going to be consolidating at these levels, and maybe we see one final flush out towards the end of the year. Now, we don't know exactly where price is going to flatline at and exactly where it's going to bottom out at, but we have, you know, these sort of tools and indicators that we can use to put the probabilities in our favor. And if you are looking to deploy capital like I am, I'm looking to be adding in areas of value as we are at exactly at the moment at that 200-week moving average, and looking at some of these you know, time frames of crossovers when we tend to see bottoms. And if we do go any lower, then I'm looking to add into potential areas of value at those potential 14k to 13k Bitcoin levels, should we reach those levels later on in the year. So if we look at those likely paths of Bitcoin either bottoming in between now and October, November, Q4 of 2022, it is likely that, given the way that the price is reacting at the moment, that we are either going to you know, consolidate to the side and then potentially make one final dump down in October, November, September towards the end of the year, and potentially we challenge this order block at about 13,500. That's the scenario that I'm looking at for if we break any lower. However, there is also the possibility that maybe we do hold the 200-week moving average, as there is so much panic in the market, and we can potentially hold this, consolidate and create a range, and then potentially move higher. So I think that the levels that we're going to be looking at for that potential Bitcoin bottom low is going to be current levels, current prices where all this panic is at. And you remember that usually when prices, everyone's calling for these really low prices in Bitcoin, and everyone thinks that price can only go down in the same way that price can only go up towards the top of the market, okay? A lot of the times those price targets don't always get reached, so that's why I'm looking to be buying in. I'm happy to buy in it slightly earlier, and then, you know, take the volatility of some drawdown should we move down to those lower levels in 2022 Q4 around November, October. So I hope you got some insight from this video and you got loads of value, and it gives you another way of thinking about how the market might bottom towards this year. No one knows where the bottom is, so don't let anyone tell you that they know exactly where price is going to go. Like I said, you're only looking at past data and trying to increase the probabilities of where to buy. But the most important thing is I hope you lot were not buying somewhere up here and at all-time highs, where I was saying don't be buying towards all-time highs, and then, you know, at that $44,000 level we're definitely likely to break down. So that's how I'm viewing the market, and until the next video, I'll catch you lot in the next time. Don't forget to subscribe.